One thing that was really powerful this week was just around um, young people, young people's ability to focus, just working with young people this week and seeing also just this sense maybe of slight tiredness at the end of the year. And just this is a pervasive thing that I feel like this generation is facing. So for us parents, it is a real challenge for us to um, enable our children to be able to focus. Yeah, just that's the topic really for today. It's just how to help our children into their full capacity to be able to engage with whatever it is they're doing. Um, and this is something I think is appropriate for all of us. I know that it's true in my experience, also my ability to focus. So, as always in Young Fire, I don't want the focus to just be all about problem solving the children. I really see us all in the same boat. In my work, it's the same. I'm not the one with kind of all the answers. We're working together on things that are common to all of us, really. So yeah, there are differences there. There's a wisdom of age and experience that I might have, that we all might have. But yeah, so all of us, this live is kind of for everyone, parents and teenagers alike. And yeah, how to focus, especially with these modern day challenges. Um, Everything's speeding up. Since I've been born, just the pace of life speeding up, technological advancement, and obviously all of the, yeah, I was laughing with someone this week about how I still have that idea that like, wow, if we can do everything way quicker, why aren't we doing less? But that's just almost like wholly irrelevant to most of us. We know that's just not the way it is, so let's get on with it as it is. But it is interesting that we've sped up so much and we're just running at warp speed instead of having more time, more time off from creating these incredible machines. But yeah, so that context of just a generation finding it much harder to concentrate. Let's just put it like that, and all of those learning difficulties that have sprung up over the last 15, 20 years. At least the label has sprung up and been much more widely applied for good and for not so good. So yeah, the capacity to focus and to concentrate and really to settle down is something I've talked about a lot in this group. And I hope this live will be fresh and new for those of you that have heard a lot about that. But I really do think that's where it's at in terms of the work I do with students, and also just for well-being in general, satisfaction and fulfillment, but also that settledness just to be engaged in activities is also a great sign of lots of other safety, security, belonging, acceptance, self-confidence. A lot that's a sign of many other good attributes and foundations for life too. So I just had a session with a student this week that really inspired this live. And this is such familiar territory for me when I'm online with someone. This has been maybe 5-6 years of me being only online in my teaching work with young people. So it's familiar to me when there is a drifting concentration, a sense of kind of cutting corners, not fully showing up also in the relationship, which is something I demand for the benefit of both of us. That honesty and really, having a job to do together and doing it. No game playing in my way of teaching or being with young people. And that avoidance, a sense of avoidance, subtly avoiding responsibility, maybe having a few other windows open. This has been a big challenge for everyone teaching online, and it's a challenge I think teachers should take. I've always had this idea that teachers should just like earn the right to be listened to. There's so much kind of protection of teachers and like, I don't know, kind of mollycoddling in some ways of teachers because they are hammered as well in another way. But on the flip side, I feel like, yeah, teachers should earn the right to be listened to. We shouldn't just presume that because we're a teacher, or because in some ways we've been put in that role, that we should be listened to. You know, young people, I just believe in more autonomy for them and more dignity for them in the choosing. And I would love in some ways to see an education system where there's much more choice like that, you know. And as a teacher, if you're not really meeting your students' needs, your room empties out, you know. And maybe that is YouTube. So YouTube is doing that. People are either showing up to the good content on YouTube or not, or somewhere in between YouTube and our conventional school setting. But yeah, so anyway, there I am, kind of sitting with this student, and I can tell that there just isn't, that there is a lot of that cultural distancing. Um, you know, how else to describe it? Yeah, a sense of just not really showing up there, and just and also splitting that focus, like half being kind of, you know, I can hear the typing, and I mean, I call it out all the time, like every time. So as soon as I'm aware of the fact that I'm not being fully I'm not fully present with someone, or they're not fully present with me, I immediately call that out, because that's just, I don't work like that anymore. And so that's my standard, that if we're not going to show up for each other, then there isn't any point in us being together and having that session then. And so I have a range of skillful ways of not dumping that on a young person, because I completely understand. We have trained them to not be so clear in those ways, not so able. We have hammered them in other ways through our education system and through our contemporary culture, to be a bit like aloof and distant and not really sure, like, you know, game playing, you know, just thinking they're being skillful in that kind of way, or just, you know, feeling a bit forced into things. And so, yeah, I completely get it. And it incites in me a great call up for these young people to just go, you know, come on, let's be clear in all of our, let's try and clear away all of that stuff, just push all of that way that we've learned to be off a cliff, and just reset and go, okay, what is it that what is it that we want out of our day-to-day activities, out of each moment? You know, and splitting concentration, for example, half doing one thing, half doing another thing. Like, I know it as a teacher, I just know when someone is with me all the way, and when that learning, whatever we're focusing on or whatever we're talking about, if we're just talking about aspects of life that are of interest to them, um, I know when we're engaged, and it's just total fulfillment on both sides. It's magical, and that's of course what everyone wants out of a teaching relationship and student relationship. And I know, yeah, I know when that's when that's not the case, and the opposite of that is the opposite of that. It's utterly unfulfilling. You know, you're kind of secretly trying to carry on with some other activity from before the call, and then you're kind of half answering the questions that are being asked to you by the adult educator, mentor, whoever in front of you. And it's just the worst of all, it's just the worst of all worlds. And it's a small little insight into how we're splitting all of our concentration in all of our lives, like everything that we're doing, how we're not fully showing up to the moment. Um, and we can all relate to this, I'm sure, with just owning a phone, owning a smartphone nowadays. That has created, you know, not wanting to I'm not trying to blame corporations or the advancement of technology, but in a way that's a perfect way of showing how we're like hopping about. Oh, maybe there's something better here, maybe there's something better there. And you know, we're not fully with who we're with, or we're not fully with that activity, we're not focused just solely on that task. And we need ways to be able to make sure that we do that. And so for young people especially, this is something that I really wish to work with them on, to show them the benefits of just settling down. putting the phone away is a metaphor, and shutting down the other windows on the computer when we're working together on maths, for example, or essay writing, is a metaphor for just how we are learning to live in general. Um, and yeah, so for many young people, I I I I come at them kind of pretty full on about that, really, just that it is a fork in the road for our relationship. If they don't want it, then that's fine. And if they do kind of want it, then there's only really one way to be in it, and that is showing up. And the atmosphere is as relaxed and as open and as friendly and as responsive to the moment as I can make it. But it's absolutely essential, um, yeah, that there is that authentic showing up to everything. So, you know, the result, if we don't, and the result I see in lots of young people, the relevance to this group, I hope, of parents of teenagers and younger, is that if our children can't show up to whatever it is they're doing, whether that's a lesson, an online mentorship program, or any task they're doing where they really devote themselves to that, when they're in their relationships, when they're speaking with people, spending time with people, you know, the result, if we don't really commit and we keep hopping about, is a vagueness generally about what our priorities are and what our loves are, a confusion, a dissatisfaction, a pervasive sort of dissatisfaction, a sense that there's kind of nothing anywhere. There's nothing, we don't know where to find nourishment. We don't know what to do ultimately. And we begin to kind of drain of confidence and uh, yeah, and commitments, and it just gets pared down, especially this year. This year has also like narrowed everything down. I want to talk a bit later about just you know, opening life back up again, coming out of this period. um, Young people especially, like getting back on the horse, you know. There is a tendency for all of us as human beings, I think, to just get used to things the way they are. And they've been pretty warped this year. You know, they've been very insular, very isolated, very internal, and very online. And, you know, we need to kind of kickstart back into some of the good stuff from before. I'm all for the radical change that the pandemic's brought about as well, and not needing to go back to things the way they were in lots of ways. But yeah, the stuff that we really want to invite back into our lives, and which really does serve us, whether we're young or old, we do need to kind of kickstart. We do need to just get ourselves out there again a little bit. So yeah, I'll talk a bit about that later on as well. But yeah, one brilliant line from this Montessori course that I'm doing was about technology. And this is a line I've started using with young people, is just to say to them, you know, is it that we're using technology or that we're being used by it? And you know, I think that's a very powerful consideration that everyone can relate to, young and old. Yeah, in terms of lifestyle choices and the confidence to pursue a range of different activities and to get back out there to the various clubs and you know, groups of people again, you know, that take us away from some of that otherwise just endless technological kind of consumption. Yeah. And of course, with concentration and focus, one other thing I wanted to say is that I love with young people and with myself to be real and true about the mind. You know, the mind is, in my experience, wandering all over the place, you know. I'm not into like trying to pretend otherwise. That's concentration is something you just, you know, buck up and just do it. You know, for me, I'm like, wow, the mind is wild and free and often distracted. But, you know, our job, if we want to access fulfillment and satisfaction, and we want to show up and we want to get the job done, so to speak, or we want to be with someone fully, our job is to refocus, refocus, refocus in a completely effortless way. We're like, oh, okay, I've just wandered off again. I've wandered off in my mind. Bring it back. I want to be here for this person. I want to be here for this activity. And, you know, of course, bringing up our kids with ever increasing autonomy and self-leadership, rather than just putting them in a system that just tells them what to do the whole time so that they don't lead on anything, you know, that really that helps. So they know why they're there. So when they are getting distracted, they're like, oh no, I want this. Like, I want to be here. I want to be learning this. I've chosen this. And I haven't been hoodwinked into it. I haven't been subtly coerced into it, and I'm not being forced to do it in any way. This is my choice. So then, okay, great. Yeah, let's work with the mind to bring the mind back to focus naturally, not with much effort, just that simple commitment of wanting to learn, wanting to be there. And yeah, I think we can all relate to this as well. Like for me, this was absolutely life-changing, to be more aware of this, my own mind, my own, and all of this is maybe quite abstract sounding this morning, but it definitely relates to my work and to young people and learning and motivation and confidence and all the things that we're all interested in this group. So yeah, not being able to listen to people was something that I really, not just realizing I wasn't a great listener. And, you know, that's something that is going to be a lifelong journey for me, to continue to really harvest the fruits of genuine learning from others as well, and genuine being with others, where I'm not just sitting there as I used to most of my life. Thinking, what am I going to say next? Yeah, that's great. This person's talking. What's my next point? And, you know, wondering how I'm looking, or, you know, just wondering about other things, just daydreaming off. And of course, someone's talking to us and they haven't really asked for our attention. They're just talking on and on and on. We can use that time to think, what are we going to have for dinner later or whatever. But, you know, when we're in relationship and want to be in relationship, then, you know, I've found it fascinating to look at my own capacity to listen, and obviously to bring that then into the realm of young people and learning and education. And yeah, just to be aware of the mind in that way, and aware of how we've come to be very distracted by other things, in a way the social media before social media was just our own fantasies. Whilst we're with someone, our own, you know, and it's all there. It's just as colorful as social media, just tons of distractions and other things to focus on. And then we just completely miss, in a literal sense, you miss the, you know, the academic learning. Let's say you just missed the topic. You're like, oh gosh, just completely zoned out there. Don't know how to do trigonometry now. Oh well. But, you know, in another way, you really miss what other people have to offer you. You know, we really miss what other people have to offer us in life, because we're just completely caught up in our own heads, our own minds rather. Yeah, so this is definitely in this area of focusing and concentration in general, and encouraging young people to be clear on their commitments. And it is true for all of us to be clear on our commitments. You know, we want to do this, so let's do it, and let's be completely normal. Let's be completely real about the mind, but at the same time, we want to focus. We want to get stuff done. We want to make progress. We want to feel really our full capacity, like what we are capable of. We want to see that developing in maths or in English or in anything. So yeah, I usually talk about this quite a lot with students who are struggling for concentration, and it is absolutely without any moral injunctions, just to say there's no guilt or shame around it. As you can probably tell, it's not, the solution is not to try harder and be more industrial, you know, be busier, just work harder, work ethic, you know, and just slave away like that. It's really the opposite. It's to do with choice. Do we want this? And then when we know we want it and we've made a commitment to it, then we just show up to it. We just show up to it as fully as possible. And that is a huge lever to kind of press forward in a young person's life to yeah, to be able to concentrate. And very practically, I have spent like whole hour-long sessions just looking at like, okay, so you're going to come in, where are you going to put the phone? How are you going to make sure you don't have the other windows open on your desktop? You know, the kind of the FIFA or all the kind of, I don't know what it is. It was all football stuff for this particular guy, like football gaming stuff, trading players. How are you going to have that off for your half hour of homework so that you can actually you know, start to really give yourself to your homework. You can start to really go, okay, this is my half hour, and I'm going to think about, I'm going to approach in the best way I can, you know, Russia, whatever it is, the history topic, or, you know, and I'm going to look at it, I'm going to give it, I'm going to full on give it half an hour in my own way. And I'm not going to be peeled off by all of the other digital, technological distractions or any other distractions in mind. Yeah, and I sometimes use the example of just this is really also for adults, you know, just showing up for things we don't want to do, like just giving more to those things if we kind of have to do them. And the typical example is always tax returns, but you know, for a student, a piece of homework, you know, maybe every single piece of homework you don't really want to do it, you're a bit avoidant of that piece of homework. You know, the solution is to give, is to really give to it, to like turn around any of that negative framing of it in your own mind. And I also work on this with students, like speech, how you're talking to yourself about your capacity in a subject, how you're talking to yourself about your relationship with a teacher, how you're talking to yourself about your relationship with the subject itself. You know, I hear so much like, I hate this subject, or I'm no good at it, or you know, my teachers are this or that. You know, not for long. I don't put up with it for long, but I do want to know and I do understand. But you know, the way to activate that, to bring empowerment to that, is to start to give to it, actually, to start to give to that relationship, to mature into being able to being less warring with your teacher, and to just allow them also to make things work for both of you in that relationship. And same with the subject, you know, to be able to give more. Just give half an hour to that assignment that you don't want to do. Open up to it, you know, open up to what it can be for you. You've got to do it anyway. And there is always that other choice for me of like, you know, or do you, you know, and then the extreme solutions, you know, not extreme for everyone, is, you know, quit. Like leave school, or like drop that subject, or you know, like, is this a problematic commitment, and like, let's reset. Do you want it or do you not want it? And if you're going to do it, I believe in like dignity for young people. You know, I believe they should be way more upheld and dignified to themselves than they are. Don't do it. Like, let's get clear. What's the commitment? What do you want? What do you really want to do? And then let's go for it. And you know, make a life. I'm loving the evolution of life away from kind of 10 GCSEs, more like down to 5, not even GCSEs, other qualifications. I've got students who are doing brilliantly progressive qualifications that are going to tick all of the conventional boxes that GCSEs do, but with way more liberty, empowerment, and joy in the learning process. So yeah, bring it on, that new evolution of education systems. So brilliant.